During the 20th century, the act of building bodhráns evolved into an art, following the drum's transition from household object to musical instrument. As the instrument found its voice in the Irish music scene of the 1960s, the bodhrán surged in popularity, and the process of building the drums was refined for optimised sound and durability. From the old handmade skin trays, presumably used to imitate European tambourines for the wren hunt on St. Stephen's Day, to the carefully designed and lovingly produced bodhráns we have today, the drum has come a very long way in quite a short time. Up until this point, there were a few drum makers making tambourines and bodhráns in Ireland. Sonny Davy from Sligo was a well-known and respected maker, reportedly making his first drum in 1917. You can see Sonny's signature black stripe around the drum's rim as he's playing in this lovely clip from around 1974.
We're now getting to the great Sonny Davy, which is a great bodhrán player that made an awful lot of bodhráns.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm delighted to meet you again.
Well, great, Sonny. Nice to see you again. You sold me a great bodhrán one time. That's beyond in America somewhere. Upstate, I think that went. You still making them?
I'm still making them all the time, yeah.
Yes. And what do you make them out of, Sonny?
I make them out of goat skin. I buy the goats up in the mountains and I make the hoops myself.
Up until the 1970s, drum making was much more individualised, with sporadic cases of people building their own drums, like Eamon Doolan, who made his own drum in 1951 for the first Fleadh Ceol na hÉireann, and other self-builders like Peadar Mercier of the Chieftains in the 1960s, and in that spirit, Peadar Ó Riada, the son of Seanie Ó Riada, who popularised the bodhrán in the 1960s, who shared with me how he made all of his own bodhráns throughout the 1960s and 70s.
My father was doing a play in 1959 for Brian McMahon. He was in charge of music at the time in the Abbey Theatre.
Was that Sive?
Yeah. And there was Straw Boys in that play, so Brian asked Sean if he could produce the music and dancers for that. So Sean used the bodhrán that time. And he got, through Brian, he got to know an old farmer in Listowel who was used to make bodhráns. We had a craft shop at home and he decided that it would be good to make, when my mother and him decided we could make bodhráns. So myself and a local lad that I was friendly with, he took us down to Listowel to meet your man. And he showed us what to do, skin the animal and put it on the frame. And he was using sieves for sand, you know, which already had the handles in them. That was why it was handy. By 1970-71, we had grown out of it and we had other fish to fry.
There are, of course, many others, so in my research for this documentary, one name was consistently present as I tried to unpick the timeline of events.
I always thought Charlie made the best ones. I was very influenced by Charlie Byrne.
My first bodhrán I bought off Charlie Byrne, and I paid 20 quid for it. And I had that drum for years.
This is a Charlie Byrne.
That's a Charlie Byrne?
That's original, no doubt. Wow. He would have been the one that changed my whole life and made me into, you know, what I am today.
But who was Charlie, and how did he become the most celebrated and influential bodhrán maker in Ireland? I met with Donnchadh Gough, who knew Charlie well, and he has what is probably the largest collection of Charlie's drums.
There's another Charlie drum. This is the one I got in 1990. That's the very first one I had.
God, that's beautiful, isn't it?
A bit of mulch and paint and it just deepened the tone slightly of them. I'd love to hear that one again now. That was before tape. The first time I got a Charlie Byrne's bodhrán was in February 1990. I was 15. So since then, I've been playing Charlie Byrne's bodhrán. I suppose my go-to bodhrán is the Charlie. The first time I met him, we drove to the house in Thurles. My father drove me up to get the bodhrán, and it was a great welcome. Himself and Peggy were great characters. But I remember just going into the back of the house and the bags of bodhráns, big sacks, they're like coal sacks full of bodhráns, and there's nothing like being able to go to a bodhrán maker's house and pick a bodhrán, go through 30 bodhráns and say, that's the one I like.
Johnny Ringo McDonagh, credited for being one of the pioneers of bodhrán playing, also remembers Charlie fondly.
He was a genuine, what I call a genuine bodhrán maker, in the sense he'd go out and he'd shoot the goat, skin the goat, do all the thing, make the rim, the whole lot, right? Some of the best Bodhráns I got of them were male goats, which were very thick skins. Take a while to break them in, but when you do, the sound is amazing. And the thing is, they smelt bad, right? So you could never get rid of the smell. I tried putting oils on it, lavender oils and different things. All I was doing was falling asleep when the Bodhrán gets warmed up, you know. And the next week the smell would be back again and I just gave up. But he would never show me the recipe, you know, his way of curing. He never showed it to me anyway.
Whilst Charlie was hugely respected and admired, he was quite enigmatic about his approach and process to making Bodhráns.
There's lovely Bodhrán too.
I met with Charlie's grandson, Dennis Byrne, and his son, also a fantastic Bodhrán player called Charlie, to find out more.
Pictures that a lot of people wouldn't have seen. Actually, Charlie Byrne working, putting Bodhráns together in his workshop in Clabana Terrace in Turles. And you can actually even see in this picture here, he's putting studding down a goat skin onto a rim. And his hammer, if you look really closely, you can see the hammer is so old that it's broken. And he's still using it. That's the sort of way he would be. Nothing would get thrown away. And I think that overalls, I think he had that nearly all his life. So I can't remember him not wearing anything else. But he was very meticulous on some of the materials he would use. You know, his clamps, that's a very, very good picture of him there, clamping down the rims. He had the formwork done as well. And doing his own steaming. Now, in the early years, he did do this in Turles. In later years, he moved back to his home farm in Kilkenny to do this. Picture of him there off hunting goats, and he was a wily man for hunting goats. I think sometimes he enjoyed that more than actually making the Bodhráns himself.
Charlie was actually a box player, so I was curious to find out how he first got interested in making Bodhráns.
He formally only started making the Bodhráns because of his daughter Carmel. Carmel was in her early teens, and she actually broke the kitchen cupboard door by playing it as a drum. And his wife Peggy said, "Will you ever go away and just make her a drum of some sort?" Which he did. Carmel, being a very, very good all-Ireland player, they were able to develop the Bodhrán into the way it could be sold.
This is a great Bodhrán. Good thick. What you said to me inside, I knew the minute you said it. Because nearly everyone now, well, the people that come here, well, they're all a kind of music people and they're going to play. But you see young lads on the street and people buying them for their young lads, they don't know like the type to get.
Yeah.
Beginners. The people that come here want them to play with music.
Yeah.
Well, right. They'll all look for a thick skin, a good strong skin. I'm all now.
The real thing he was working on then, not so much the rim, was how to work the skins. And when we talk about the skin, it wasn't him just going buying a skin. He would go hunt the goat with the permission of farmers or even the local county councils. He'd go up the mountains and he'd cull the goat with the gun, and then he'd de-skin the goat, and then he'd treat the skins with lime, etc. So he did the whole process.
I'll show you those ones now. There's lovely Bodhrán too. It's kind of a bit of blood in it too. That was one that wasn't blade. That's only blood. Mm-hmm. The blood in and every animal, that's a good skin. Like. Wow. It's a real good skin. See, it's thicker in places. Mm-hmm. It's a great skin. That's 19 inches. That's for a lad in Cork. Isn't that nice? A lad in Cork come next week. That's made from a racehorse skin.
Wow.
He was from the horsing, and his originally he was a jockey, a horse trainer, and then he was a blacksmith, and that was basically his occupation. He used to do that. Very, very small man, but you can see him here on an absolutely gigantic racehorse. He had absolutely no fear when it came to racehorses. Physically, as he moved on later, past 50 years of age, it was physically intensive. Whereas, and he could be travelling all over Munster to do that. Whereas he could do the Bodhráns in his workshop and work away. Now, the downside we found with him with that, it would be not unheard for him to spend 14 hours a day in the workshop. Very, very much old school. Very, very hard upbringing back, born in 1922. So, brought up in a farm basically up in the hills of Kilkenny. And it was a hard upbringing.
In addition to his work ethic, Charlie and his wife Peggy were renowned for their hospitality, welcoming people from all over the world who made the pilgrimage to Thurles to buy a Charlie Bodhrán.
This was sent through to his house probably about a month or two after, in 1986. His daughter Nuala opened the envelope for him, and there's a picture of John Denver playing quite clearly one of his Bodhráns with a beater made by Charlie Byrne as well. And she said, well, what are you doing with a John Denver picture? Why has he got one of your Bodhráns? Oh, that's the nice American man that was here last, during the summer. There's numerous pictures here of people from all over the world. And of course, then the purchasing process, if you didn't come to the house, it was a process of letters, postage, everything like that. Not like the internet now, press a button, Amazon, it's here 2 days later. And of course, it was a double act. Him and his wife, Peggy. She was very much, once you got to the sales side, you were then dealing with Peggy. He was far too busy manufacturing Bodhráns.
Peggy Byrne looked after the business side of Charlie's Bodhrán making operation and also made Bodhrán bags out of recycled tent canvas, which they both collected from the Féile, a large annual music festival held in Tipperary throughout the 1990s.
When you went to purchase at the house, you weren't going to a shop. You were going to someone's old Irish house in a town in Munster in Ireland in the in the 70s and 80s, and you were getting a cup of tea, and if you were there long enough you were getting a dinner, and it was not too unheard of to be 6-7 hours at least purchasing a Bodhrán.
I see one of this timber I told them they don't ever steam. I told them that there's a bigger one still, that's a lot of money. Yeah. There's a bigger one too, there's a bigger one still. You wouldn't sell much of them. There's an extra good skin on there. There's some Bodhrán, look at that. Not lovely. I told them that had ever steam in it.
These snapshots from another time offer us a glimpse of a master craftsman at work and are all memories remembered fondly by Charlie's daughter Nuala.
And they're great memories. They're great memories. I look back now even on all these pictures and I'm absolutely astounded. He was amazing in the manufacturing of these Bodhráns because he had hands. As for his fame, people would come from everywhere and the house would be full of music. They all came from around the world into that little house below in Mitchell Street, a simple little house. But look, it was everything. And it's where he was happy. On all the photographs, if you notice, this man is a man at work. Do you notice that? That was him every day, And it's great to have had him in so many pictures at his work. And especially this one. He was being very bold there. That's as old as Methuselah, this brown hat. And he always wore that hat. I have that hat at home. And I have it on the banister of the stairs, and there it is, and there it's staying. It's old, it's shabby, but do you know something? It's him. He passed away in the end of November 2007, and we were coming up on December. And it was hard coming to Christmas without him, which I have to say is very true. And lo and behold, this boy was born at the end of December coming to January, and the first day home from hospital you came in for Daddy's month's mind. You know the month's mind? And this little baby came in, and Dennis and Sandie said, we're calling him Charlie. And it sort of took the sting out of his loss. It was warming our hearts. And I'm so proud of him. And Daddy would love to know he is keeping the tradition going.
I've had people come up to me and say, is that a Charlie Byrne drum? And they don't know who I am. I explain to them and they're amazed. It's amazing like how much people know the name and they appreciate the quality of the drums.
I now know he was a legend, but at the time growing up with him, I knew he was busy and people knew him, but you didn't. You get older, you see it different, you know. I look back on it and I'm even amazed talking about it as it is.
Charlie's legacy lives on in every Bodhrán made today. His influence is clear, his inspiration widespread. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the evolution of the Bodhrán's playing style, including the contributions of various iconic players, I'd invite you to watch this video for the next chapter in my documentary, The Real Story of the Irish Bodhrán.